Hello and welcome to the Worn and Wound podcast. My name is Blake Bettner, and we are back in studio today in Brooklyn. There's Walter. Hey, Walter. Producer Walter.
What's up?
He's got his mic on this time, but he's not wearing a watch this time, so I'm not going to call you out on the wrist check.
I know I got one.
Okay. We'll have to do something about that. We'll hook Walter up. We've got Zach Kazan there in the computer in Concord, New Hampshire. There you go.
Yes.
Somebody called me out somewhere about how I pronounced it on the.
I think it was me on Watch Crunch. Yeah.
Some guy called me out. What I said Concord.
Yeah, that's a common mispronunciation. I mean, there are people who live in like neighboring states who mispronounce Concord by saying Concord. So.
Okay. Well, now I know. Concord.
Easy mistake to make. Yeah. We're informing people on the Worn and Wound podcast today.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And we also delighted to be joined by Kat Shoulders down in Nashville. How are you, Kat?
I say it.
It's not okay. That's all right. Well, we'll work on that one too. Nashville.
Yeah.
Because you don't have people don't have accents down there, right?
If you're from Nashville, not really.
Okay.
But if you're on the outskirts, that definitely that southern accent. Yeah.
I have in-laws in Kentucky, and they definitely have accents. Lovely accents, I will add, of course.
Important clarification.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. I think I shed my Wisconsin accent a little bit more and more each year that I don't live there, whatever that sounds like. Anyways, we are leading into the Chicago Wind-Up Watch Fair, which when this goes live is I think a week away. Oh boy, do I have I think it's July.
Yeah, that's about right.
15th, 16th, and 17th, I believe. That's the Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Chicago. So any of you Midwesterners from Nashville to Minneapolis, definitely swing on out if you want to. We look forward to meeting you. We've got actually some really fun stuff planned. There's going to be some great brands there. I'm really excited about some of the brands that are going to be there. And we have it's like a stage area where we'll be recording like podcasts that you'll be able to come and sit in on and be a part of live. Yeah. So that will be a lot of fun, including a live recording with James Stacy and Jason Heaton of the Grey NATO. That one will be a lot of fun. If you have any questions that you would like us to ask them or any topics that you'd like us to cover, be sure to send them to us and we'll make sure to get to them as best we can. So, do you guys have any brands that you're looking forward to seeing at the Wind-Up Watch Fair in Chicago?
Oh boy, there's so many that are going to be there, and I think it'll be cool that we're going to be on the Oak and Oscar and the Astor and Banks turf. Those guys from Chicago, so it'll be cool to see kind of their customers and stuff come out and represent the city well. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, I don't know if there's anyone specifically that wasn't at the San Francisco one. I know there are a couple of brands that weren't there. I don't have the list in front of me.
Autodromo, Laurier.
Oh, yeah.
They'll be there. They weren't in San Francisco. I'm looking forward
Very
to seeing
cool.
them.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah, love all those people. I'm really excited to see them as well. Our friends Gabe and Asher with the Collective are going to be there as well. And I think they along with Worn and Wound are going to have on display like all of the special editions, limited editions, collabs.
I'm so excited for that.
So I think that will be really, really cool to see. And just in general, I think there's a lot of really cool watches that you really don't generally get a chance to see and go hands-on with that will be present there. So always a good time. And yes, I hear Chase rolls deep there in Chicago. So we'll see how that pans out. Now, I think there's a lot of people that have been asking for a Midwest wind-up for a long time. We were going to do one, I think, the year that COVID hit. So
what's that thing?
What's that thing? So this is kind of like it's been a long time coming, and being a Midwesterner myself, I'm excited to kind of get back out there as well. A lot of the comments that I saw on places that this has been posted have been asking for a European version of the wind-up, which I think would be pretty cool. So maybe
we should do it.
Yeah, let's go.
And for anyone listening, the three of us have pretty much nothing to do with planning this stuff or anything like that. So it's out of our jurisdiction, but we would, I think, love to see a European version happen as well. So we'll see about that. Yes. So we've had, well, compared to the beginning of the month, it's been relatively slow, but we've had a few kind of uptick releases happen. Just yesterday, as we record this, it was kind of a surprise to us. These Breitling divers released. Did you guys see these things? And so I saw a picture on Instagram, and then I opened up the release when it was sent to us, and I discovered 10, 15 references or something like this. Zach, you wrote about it. What's going on with these?
Breitling released a lot of new Superoceans.
Superoceans,
like in every size you can imagine. They did a just now, of course, I'm going to blank on the actual, but like the largest one is I think a 46 millimeter case, and then they go all the way down to 36.
Oh, great! So there's a 40 millimeter version and like a 38 millimeter version.
Oh, wait a minute. No.
Oh, not okay.
No,
just kidding.
Okay,
it's just kind of like it's 46. 44, 42, I think, and then 36.
Okay.
And but like lots of colors. Every color you can imagine. Including orange and turquoise and blue and black and white. They look nice. I think they look nice, but it's incredible to me that they released all these watches and didn't release a 40 millimeter.
Yes, they seem to have somewhat of an aversion to 40 millimeter watches. I think they even did a 41 millimeter Navitimer that Cosmo. I think that was 41. But yeah, this I thought, oh, perfect. They've got something for everybody in here, and it looked like a new dial design and like case design. Like this whole thing looked like kind of a new platform for them.
Yeah, so the dial is based off of a heritage Superocean, the slow motion, which is a kind of like a chronograph without like a chronograph, like a typical chronograph layout. Didn't have a running seconds hand. Kind of a classic, watch. We'll put the link in the show notes. You can read up on that. But it has like a high contrast. Like outer minutes register that contrasts with like the colored interior dial. So it's like a very like easy to read, kind of like at a glance, stripped down dive watch. Again, like I really like the overall aesthetic of this. It's kind of like it's definitely in the fun summer watch category, in my opinion, with some of these more playful colors. But interesting move on the sizing. They went real big and real small, but there isn't like a true medium size. I don't think.
No medium. No, there's nothing in that Goldilocks zone there.
Yeah.
I say that just coming off of an article that I wrote about how we shouldn't put too much stock into the numbers alone. So, maybe on wrist the watch is just fine, because really that's what's important here is that it's a wearable watch. It's dateless too, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah. No date.
Okay.
Which I think is a nice choice.
Yeah, I like dateless dive watches. I know you do too, Kat. What do you think about what do you think about this Superocean?
I actually really like them. I was looking at the orange one here on my phone, and I really dig it. The only gripe that I have is that I wish the rubber strap was a little bit more integrated. It's just got the kind of a flat end to it. So, I mean, I feel like with all the work they did with this case design, it would have been cool to have like an integrated, rubber strap on it. But that's one little, minor thing. I'm excited to see these in the metal, but they look cool. Yeah. And there seems to be an option for almost everybody.
almost everybody. Which size would you go with? Would you go with the 42?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think for me, for a diver, anything under 40, even like 39 I don't know. It feels small to me.
Yeah.
I know I might get some hate for that, but yeah, I would go for 42.
Yeah,
sure.
No, I think that's perfectly reasonable. And yeah, I mean, I feel like usually when you see watches like this with the rubber strap, they do have that integration, especially when they're like a little bit larger and they kind of have that curvature. So, so they're a little more wrist friendly. Of course, we can withhold judgment until we get our hands on one. But the case design looked kind of interesting to me as well. Like it kind of tapers towards the crown guards a little. Like it looks like there's some maybe interesting stuff here that's not just your straightforward generic diver. So it will be fun to see these in the flesh, which hopefully we'll get to do pretty soon. I got that. I always forget the name of it, but they have another diver that has like a concave bezel structure. that kind of like flares out like a dinner plate that I think is kind of sharp as well. I think they did like an outer known version of it that I thought was kind of nice. I feel like I think for not to speak for the two of you, but I think Breitling can be a little hit or miss sometimes with their watches. But when they have hitters, I think they work really well. So maybe they're just watches that we need to spend some more time with on wrist to see how they are kind of in day-to-day life. Maybe they get a bad rap unfairly.
Here's a question: do you like the minute hand with the big block on it, or do you find it, I don't know, distracting?
So I believe that's a direct reference to the vintage Breitling that this is based on. I do kind of like it. I think it's
historical significance to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes it like incredibly easy to spot. So it really should aid in legibility, I would think.
Yeah.
It's I like that. I think it's kind of cool. I like the blocky hour markers. Also kind of
I do like the blocky hour markers. My only thought was like, okay, if you're looking at it in the dark or if you're looking at it through Lume, does that minute block get confused with the the indice blocks? I don't know. I'd have to see it. It's much bigger, but
wow,
it looks a little funky. It might be one that I have to warm up to.
It's enormous. I get something that I just kind of like glazed over, and then you pointed it out, and wow, that is.
Is it any bigger, you think, than like a snowflake?
It looks bigger than it, but I don't know, because the chapter ring just inside the dial is very thick. So the actual like solid dial itself that the hour markers sit in looks very small. So that could be exaggerating the size of all these blocks. Yeah,
that's true.
But yeah, that could be like one of those, what the heck were they thinking here? Like character thing that kind of like grows on you, and it kind of like sets it apart. And it's got that like kind of grippy flare over on the left side of the case too. There's some weirdness to this watch. The more I look at it,
the grippy flare is that's a bezel locking mechanism that's only on the 46 millimeter.
Oh, okay. I pulled up the 46 millimeter. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So maybe the proportions on this one are a little different. I don't know, but okay, that's cool. All right, I'll give it.
I would love to just wear the 46 and just kind of see what it feels like just because I mean, to me, it's kind of a it feels almost like a throwback to like that period in Breitling that like we all kind of like, I don't want to make a generalization, but it seems like enthusiasts don't really like big brash, like blingy Breitling period. Yeah. But it feels like sort of like a mix between that and like this newer, more kind of laid back, stripped down Breitling. So I'm curious to see how that would look and wear.
I feel like we should all get a different size, and we should all wear them for like a week.
Yeah.
Zach, you get the 46. I'll get the 36. You get the 42. Cat.
Exactly.
We could just meet in the middle and see what happens. Yeah. I like it. So that's the Breitling. It's just a new Superocean. So go check that out. We've got a lot more details on that on Morning Wow. There's another watch that I didn't want to say anything about it leading into this, but I wanted to get your kind of like raw take on your raw emotion on this, Zach, this mission to Earth Awake watch. Yeah. What is going on here?
So I wrote about this watch for the site. It launched on Friday. I was not familiar with this brand. Awake, it's Awake Concepts. I believe they're a French brand. But this watch is like a extremely high concept watch. That's how I described it in the write up. Like it's it really tells a very specific story about I guess like the ISS, the International Space Station, and like observing Earth from the International Space Station. It uses the blockchain technology in an interesting way. It each crystal, so it's a limited edition. There's, I think, I don't have the article in front of me, but there's like 1,000 of them or whatever. Mm-hmm. And in the crystal of the watch,
250.
What's that?
250.
250. Okay, so even more limited. So so the crystal is like embedded with like an NFC chip that is like tied to a particular blockchain technology. And when you put the NFC chip near your phone camera, it launches an app that then lets you observe the Earth from a camera on the International space station.
Wow.
And like every which is like, I have to say, like that in and of itself is not like anyone can log on to the the International Space Station website and look at the camera, so like that in itself is like not an exclusive thing, but like they've tied it to this watch in kind of an interesting way. And like every little detail of this watch is inspired by some aspect of like NASA design or history or space travel or something. And I go through them in the article, but it's just like, if you're really into space, like you're wearing a NASA hat, like maybe you're into space.
Yeah.
I have a tattoo of a Saturn V rocket on my arm. Like I'm also into space. Like there's something like kind of, I don't know, like they really went for it. Like they really, there's like every detail of this watch is, like space inspired somehow. And I'm not like a crypto, person or like a, NFT person. But this seems to me like a pretty unique way to kind of use that technology that I haven't seen in a watch before. Even though it's like, even though anyone can view that, that view from the International Space Station by going onto the, their website. We'll link that in the show notes because it is kind of cool to see that. To integrate it into an app like this, I think is pretty unique. Yeah,
I liked it. This is like the most fun use of this kind of technology.
Yeah.
As I understand it. I don't know. Kat, can you explain blockchain technology for us, please?
Sure.
No, what did you? I think.
Please hold.
Yeah, please. I think aesthetically, this watch is very sharp. Maybe the brand's a little big there at 12 o'clock, but I think it's a good looking watch.
It's
I like the look of the watch. I didn't actually I quickly glanced over the photos. I didn't read the article, but I like the look of the watch. Like I would buy it just because it looks cool.
Yeah. I would as well. And there's even like some kind of interesting texture on the dial too, and the writing on the Rayhout with like ignition and liftoff and the countdown sequence. It's this thing. I
mean, it's a little on the nose, but like it's kind of like like they have like very obvious references to space and to NASA, and more subtle ones too. And you can read all about it, in the article and even more on the website. It's kind of an interesting way to kind of go about like introducing a watch, to just make something like really, really specific for a very specific, type of consumer who's looking for something like pretty unique.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool bit of kit. Looks like Miyota movement in there, 40 millimeters titanium, and about $1,000, give or take. Looks like so.
And they got NASA. It's like they're using like the NASA logo like on the watch, so like there's
they must
like
have
a legit
buy-in, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Go check that out if you're curious. It's on warningwound.com right now, and you even have a nice reference to Belova's D-Cave Computron, which is maybe on the other end of the spectrum in terms of how this tech is used. I remember I sent that to you, and I think your initial reaction to reading the press release was
it's bonkers. It's like it's a bonkers watch.
Yeah, I like it though. I like seeing kind of unusual stuff like that. And so
me too.
The next thing I wanted to get your take on and talk to you, Kat, about as well, just because I think this is conceptually so interesting. Zach, you wrote an article about a watch that you bought, but didn't tell anybody about. You didn't post it on Instagram. You didn't take it to your meetups and do all that thing. You just bought it for you and your enjoyment and the experiment. I guess that's what we could call it, right? Was to kind of see what that was like, right? Because I think a lot of us right now kind of tie a lot of like the endorphin rush of getting a new watch to the experience we have showing it to other people and then their reaction to it. And that all feels good. And it kind of feels like, what does it feel like to just buy a watch for myself that I like, enjoy it for myself, and then just kind of like
99% of people who buy a watch probably probably do that. So
I've commented on this before. I feel like this is you don't think about just how lonely this hobby might be for most people. We take it for granted that most of the people that we interact with are other like watch people in the industry and all that kind of stuff. But for most people, they're just into watches and maybe their friends give them crap for it or their wife or something like that. And it's just them, so they go onto the forums and that's like their only place that they get to interact with other people about it. So,
or maybe they're like not like into watches as a hobby and they just buy a watch and just wear it and don't like even, it doesn't like come up in conversation, at every opportunity like that. I think is like kind of that is really like the most like frequent experience of watch buying, I think, is people who just like want to buy a watch and don't realize necessarily that there's this like whole like, subculture around it.
So there's another angle to this that I wanted to mention, and that is I'll wear watches sometimes, and like if I've posted about it even relatively recently on Instagram or something, like I won't double up. Like if I'm gonna post a wrist shot or something like that to Instagram, I'll change watches, and then I'll put back on the other watch that I'm gonna wear. So in a sense, like I want it to be just my experience, and I feel like I don't want to inundate my social space with like just this one watch or whatever people think of this, or they have stereotypes about this or that, and so like I like to kind of protect that experience as just mine rather than relying on what the social space thinks of it. Is that something that either of you, Kat, do you have this experience at all?
Not necessarily to that extent. I guess I don't put a ton of thought into what I post on social media. I do tend to post when I get a new watch though.
Yeah.
And I think it's that like, it's the excitement you want to share with someone else. And I think it also serves as validation. Probably it's some subconsciousness. I think that's what it is. You want validation from others that like, oh yeah, that's a great purchase, maybe just trying to validate, the purchase price itself, probably a lot of times, but yeah, I'm interested to hear from Zach, because I've never not publicly, posted a watch that I bought and kept it hidden, especially for so long too.
Yeah. How long was it, Zach?
It was a month.
It was
month.
Like,
okay. Yeah,
that's a long time.
That's like an eternity.
So like originally, like Blake, when we had talked about this at the end of last year, I had kind of said like, I think the next watch I buy, I'm going to like just not tell anyone about, and just sort of like, because I want to just like experience it. In my mind, that would be like experiencing it like a normal person who like doesn't like post watches on Instagram every day. And like my original idea was to buy a watch and like not tell anyone about it for a year, which like now seems kind of crazy. Like how could I possibly like, that's nuts. But, I kind of like I'm just kind of like naturally sort of like averse to Instagram. Like I like scrolling through, but I'm not like huge into like just like sharing stuff on Instagram, even though I post watches like, almost every day. Like I'm just not necessarily I don't like love social media. So there was something kind of interesting to me about what would it be like? How would my relationship with the watch change? Would it change at all if I bought a watch and just like didn't post about it on social media? And I kind of enjoyed it. Like I like not having to, it's like, it's one less thing that you have to like consider during the day. I'm all about like kind of just like stripping away like opportunities to like where I have to like make decisions that don't really mean much. And so like, that was just one less thing I had to think about. And it kind of like, allowed me to enjoy the watch a little bit more. I think in those early weeks of owning it, and just kind of like focus on it a little bit more, and not have to worry about sort of like the insanity of Instagram. So I might like continue to do that. I might buy a watch and in the future and not share it publicly like right away.
Yeah,
I feel like it would be really beneficial for probably people like me that used to be like, I used to be a flipper, not for profit, but just because I was changing my mind all the time. And by not posting the watch, you can take that time to really figure out if you like the watch, and then if you don't, you could sell it without people being like, oh, you got rid of it. Oh, why did you sell it? And then you get all those remarks that kind of hit your profile and everything. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I wonder if I'll ever do that. Maybe I'll give it a try.
Yeah, we all got to give it a try. We can speak to it. So is the Seiko? It was a SPB 143, I believe.
Right. Yes.
Okay. What do you think of the watch? Actually, is it a watch that you think you'll keep?
I do. I think I'll keep it. I bought it from a friend of mine who sold it to me for like a very good price. It doesn't really like even make sense to, to sell it. I think, and it's just a really like simple kind of like everyday sports watch. I'll definitely wear it a lot over the course of the summer. Really easy to wear, extremely legible. I have some experience with this watch. I wrote about it, sort of like a pseudo review. I wrote about this watch and the Willard, the reissue of the Willard, which came out in the same year. I've spent some time with this watch already, and kind of knew a little bit about what I was getting into. And I'd been kind of like looking for, it's been a while since I've had like a, sort of just like a regular old Seiko dive watch. It's sort of a hole in my collection. So now I've got something to like time my laundry with, and like, wear to, just kind of wear around, for the summer, not really have to like think about it or worry about it.
It's a good watch to do your dock jumping in, I think.
I guess. Yeah. I don't have a dock. So
no docks up there in Concord.
I mean, I guess there are docks, but I don't have easy access to a dock. Maybe that's what I'll do. We're heading into 4th of July weekend. Maybe I'll try to find a dock.
We are. Yeah. That reminds me. I forgot to do a wrist check. Walter threw me off without. Oh
my gosh!
Just kidding.
How dare you?
I know. If you're still listening this deep in, Kat, what are you wearing on your wrist?
I've got the Speedmaster Mark II.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
With it's like the racing dial with the orange accents on it.
Yeah.
So
this is the I guess slightly more modern rendition. It's got the date at 6:00.
Yes. So this one, I think I can't remember the year. I want to say 2013 maybe is when they came out.
Yeah.
I don't think they have officially been discontinued, but I've been checking the Omega website, and they're out of stock constantly. I mean, I haven't seen it in stock for months now, so I don't know if they're going to bring these back or not.
Interesting. I think that the Mark II does not get enough love just in general. I feel like it's just kind of often overshadowed by the standard kind of Speedy Pro, which I also love. But I think the Mark II is a really special design.
It's so cool. It's so cool. The bracelet on this thing is fantastic too.
I've never really spent much time wearing one.
I'll bring it next time I'm up.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to see one and go hands on one with for a while. Zach, what are you wearing today?
I'm wearing the SPB 143.
You're wearing the SPB.
Secret Seiko. Yeah.
the secret, not so secret.
The not so secret Seiko.
Anymore. No, I mean, look at all. Zach has a 149. I have a 149. Ed has that 143. You've got the 143. Kat.
No, I'm not a part of this club.
You do? Okay.
I feel very left out right now. So I'll have to get on that.
Yeah,
maybe that'll be my next secret purchase.
Wait, do you own a Seiko diver? Are you like a Seiko diver?
I have.
Okay.
I have that.
That's right. You were
Ninja Turtle.
Yeah,
the turtle that I have. Yeah.
I'll bring one up for Walter, so he can be set up the next time. Yeah, he's on board with that. I'm wearing a Sinn U50 today. I don't know why. Sometimes it just catches my eye, and you gotta wear it. I love this thing still. I did a missed review of the Sinn EZM1 that went live. I guess it's last week as this comes out, and this was a watch that it's been kind of like on my mind for many years, and I had the opportunity to own one, and it's one of those things that it's a hard watch to review and kind of contextualize, because it has this kind of like lore built up around it now, and it's like actual history is kind of like, is that true, or is that whatever, because it's just kind of like a couple of sites that really talk about it at all, and I don't know if it's not Rush, it's really just like on the mainstream the consciousness of the mainstream watch community. I guess it's not a watch that you hear a whole lot about, but I think it's an endlessly interesting watch, and it's a watch that obviously kicked off the whole EZM series alongside the EZM2, which was released at the same time, and I learned the word, how to pronounce it, for the video. Let me see if I can remember. Einsenzeitmeister. I think that's yeah. So it stands for mission timer. But I think it's literally like a mashup of like knife and combat and timer, something weird like this.
That sounds right.
But it practically translates to mission timer. The watch turned into kind of like a a collectible for me. And I don't really own watches as collectibles. So it's a watch that I had for, I don't know, about a year. And I sold it this week. And it's one of those watches that I hate to see go from my collection, but the person that it went to, I feel deserves it more than I do. He's actually one of the head guys. So the New York Fire Department has these special like fire and rescue teams. Each borough has one, and they're like the elite guys that go and do like special rescue missions that like the regular fire department people aren't equipped for. So they've got like, you know, engineers and divers and like people that have all these really broad skills, range of skill sets that you know, that cover the whole borough. And he's the guy that leads one of them. And he's the guy that had an EZM1 many years ago and got rid of it. But I feel like this is the guy, this is exactly the person that Sinn has in mind for these kinds of watches. And he's been texting me. He was a great guy. And he says, you know, it's a watch that he wears every day now. So now when I think about the kind of stuff that he's doing, he's actually a dive instructor over on the Hudson. He still dives in a 666 Sea Dweller, by the way. He told me.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was pretty cool. So anyways, this is the kind of person that should be wearing this kind of watch all day, every day, rather than it sitting in my watch box for me to enjoy looking at every now and then. As much as I love the watch, I feel really good about it going to this guy. So shout out to you if you're listening. I hope it's okay to say. It's not like a secret group of guys, so I think it's okay to talk about this.
You just committed I think you broke some like national security
maybe
rule just now. I think this podcast is going to be censored and
maybe it'll just all black lined and
redacted
beefs throughout. Well, then it would be even more so fitting that the EZM1 went to redacted.
Yeah, the podcast will just be long bleeps with EZM1 like interspersed every time.
Yeah, exactly. Is this a watch that either of you had thought about or was on your radar or were aware of or liked, disliked? What did you guys think about the EZM1?
I mean, I've always been aware of it. I think it's a really cool watch. I love that it's like, you know, obviously it's a chronograph, but it doesn't really like look like a chronograph, and it's a lefty watch ostensibly because all the, you know, the crown and the pushers are on the you know, on the 9 o'clock side of the case. But yeah, I mean, I think if you have ever been interested in Sinn as a watch enthusiast, and certainly like that's sort of like one of the stops for a lot of us, like, you know, and the watch enthusiasm, you know, journey is like eventually you find Sinn and you go, you know, you either like go through a Sinn phase or you kind of just like you gravitate towards them. And this is kind of like a landmark watch for them. So it's a very, very cool watch. I didn't know that you sold it, but I think it's great that you let it go to someone who will, you know, really use it. I've had that experience too of selling a watch that, you know, like means something to me, but like means much more to the person who it ultimately goes to. And I always find that really, really satisfying.
So this guy was looking for one, and I had been talking to him for a couple of months beforehand until I finally got to the point of, you know, the more you learn. And so I'm happy it worked out that way. Kat, what about you?
So I wasn't actually aware of this watch until you did your piece on it. And I've always been on the fence about Sinn. I don't know what it is about the brand. It's, you know, very, I guess they're more of a masculine brand. I'll say that, you know, they're very tool watchy, and the black and the red color scheme a lot of times just doesn't jive with me. Yeah. However, this EZM1 is probably one that I could see owning. Yeah. I do really, really like it. I think it's a very cool watch. I like that. I like that chronograph function on it too. Yeah, I think it's pretty neat.
Me too. I wish that more brands would think about, like, I feel like you just kind of take it for granted that, like, okay, the movement comes like this, and it's got, you know, the totalizers here and here. It's got the running seconds here, and that's just how it is out of the box. So we're going to design a dial around that, rather than, well, here's how I want this design, and, you know, I'm going to modify the movement to make it fit that, which is kind of what Sinn did. And this feels like a very practical implementation of a chronograph complication to me. And have you, like, I know Damasco has one, I think. Like, they do exist, but you don't really see them in like mainstream brands at all. I would love to see more watches like this that just kind of, well, why do we have to do it that way? Everybody just kind of does it that way. Why is it done that way? Let's do it our own way. It's got a bi-directional countdown bezel, titanium. I mean, it's just all this kind of like weird stuff that's, that Sinn, you can tell, like stopped at every little detail and said, well, how would we like it to be done? Instead of, well, this is what we have and can do. So, I think it's a healthy approach to watchmaking that, it was kind of like my big takeaway in the article, really, that you just don't see many watches like this nowadays.
No, you're right.
You're absolutely right. I don't know. I could, I mean, let's be honest, like how many of us actually use the chronograph function like all the time? Like, we do some of the times and stuff like that, but,
I use mine every day. What are you talking about?
You use it every day. There you go. Yeah.
I use it to make sure the watch is still working. Like that's
it's still working. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. There's something about this that just kind of hits differently for me. And I agree with you, Kat. And I know that their kind of aesthetic and their thing is very much kind of like its own way. Like it's kind of hit or miss for a lot of people. But there's something like transcendent about this watch. I think that works. The only thing I didn't care for it was the domed sapphire on it, which was like it had like a peak, so it wasn't like a box or anything like that. It was just like a continual peak in the middle type dome. But William Messina sent me an email after this went live to inform me that back when this happened, like nobody was doing domed crystals like this. Like it was a big deal that they had done this, and you could tell they structured part of the design of the watch around it because even the bezel kind of like matches the slope of the dome. So it's certainly a unique aesthetic if you're into that kind of thing. So anyways, check out the EZM1 review over on the site if you haven't yet. That was a really fun one to do. We've got a couple fun ones too that we're focusing on right now that will be coming up next, including a owner's review of the Moon Swatch and Speedmaster Professional that will be done kind of through the lens of like great summer watches. So that'll be a fun one, and hopefully I know Zach had a lot to say about that watch in his review. So are people getting Moon Swatches yet? Are they like back in?
I don't know. I don't have a Swatch store near me. Okay. So I haven't like tried. It's honestly not something I've really like thought too much about. Yeah. Like, over the last couple of months after that, like initial flurry of, like excitement sort of like died down. But I don't know. There was news this week that they will not be made available online, I guess, as initially promised. So
that's a bummer.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, for people who've been wanting one who don't live near a physical retail store.
Yeah.
I mean, my feeling is like they are available online. You can buy them all day on eBay or StockX or whatever.
Are they selling like at their like retail prices online?
I think
close enough, I guess.
I just kind of did like a real quick search when like the news came out earlier this week or last week as this airs that they won't be made available on Swatch's website. And they seem to still be selling over retail, but not like that much over retail. So which I think is kind of like you would expect that as they start to like, become a little bit more available in those retail stores, like the secondary market price will come down.
Yeah. I would be curious if they actually are more readily available though, because from what I've heard, they're still kind of spotty. I know a couple of people that picked one up while they were at Couture, but they didn't really get the one they wanted. They just got one that was available, so I really do hope that they become available for those that are close by, and that those online prices will, eventually drop. At this point, I don't think I'm going to get one, but
that ship has sailed for you.
Yeah, the hype has come and gone for me, especially with the news that they weren't going to be available. I kind of thought that was kind of crummy marketing from them, and I have no interest in one now. But they are still cool, and it is a more affordable way to kind of get the feeling of Speedmaster on your wrist. So I'm not gonna hate on that.
Do you have a Swatch store in Nashville?
I don't. No, I think the closest one to me is Atlanta, which is still like 4 hours away.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of ways.
Interesting. The Speedmaster is a watch that I brought up in an article that I wrote about the numbers, right? So I kind of brought it up, used it, cited it as an example that we all often use to justify, like, okay, this is a watch that wears differently than the numbers which suggest. And I think the Speedmaster very much is that, because it's famously, it's a 42 millimeter watch, but that number is, it's an asymmetrical case, and the crown guard kind of like, kind of butts out over on the right side of the watch. So the measurement is taken from there, but like from the bezel, it's a 40 millimeter watch, and from like, the underside of the case that you see, it's smaller than that. So it's one of those watches that like wears much easier than the size would suggest. And I've noticed a lot of people lately kind of getting into these, like, where they have this kind of set of rules for watches that are acceptable for them to look at or buy or think about buying or anything like that. Well, my wrist size is this, and I draw the line here, and it can't be this thick, and the lug to lug has to be under this. So the diameter, the lug to lug, and the thickness of the case, the total thickness of the watch, I guess I should say, seem to be like these three numbers that people are kind of using. There's kind of sole guiding point for how they look at watches. And, I think all three of us here are advocates of, don't take that as the whole story. There are a lot of watches that are designed very ergonomically and that wear very well that, might fall outside of your, acceptable range of those three numbers. And the Speedmaster is kind of a prime example of that. So realizing that we probably won't get much contrast here in our discussion, because I think we all kind of fall along the same lines, and that we all have watches, all three of us, that are kind of maybe outside of the norm for what our respective wrist sizes are. But I was talking, Zach and I were talking to Roman and Julian of Zenith, and they said they've noticed a lot of people like really being sticklers about it in their boutiques. And they just encourage, we design watches to be wearable regardless of the size. And, they have kind of sizes across this range. And I think that's kind of right approach for brands to be taking, rather than, like, we have this great concept and design, and, how can we make it wearable at these kind of like physical dimensions, rather than, well, here's, starting with these three guide points of what has to fit within this thing, because those three numbers don't really account for curvature. They don't account for all the material in certain areas and all that kind of stuff. So it's something that they noticed, and I noticed a lot too. I'm sure you guys see this in the press releases that we get. We're starting to do a lot more of the time see these three numbers in there. So you can tell that brands are noticing that people are asking for it, and they're becoming a little bit more savvy in this kind of thing. But have we gone too far? I know we've kind of exacerbated this in our articles, and how do we put too big a deal on these things? I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I mean, I think you got to report on the size of the watch.
Yeah. And I don't mean to downplay the importance, but
yeah, like you got to tell people, how big the watch is, and like provide as much information as you can. As long as the manufacturer or the brand, is giving you that information, you might as well, share it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm obviously, like, as you said, like I'm an advocate for just like, trying watches and being open-minded, and, being open to like experiencing watches that either might on paper be too big or too small, in scare quotes, for your wrist size. But I wonder if, like, just the fact that there are, this idea of like putting limits, for yourself on watch size might be a result of like all of the coverage of watches, and people kind of like, they have to create filters for themselves to like, you can't just like target everything, like you have to, you have to like put like a rope around, watches that are going to be like, potentially like a better fit for you than other things. So like, I sometimes wonder if like we're contributing to that, just by like showing people like, so many watches, like, people are, naturally going to be inclined to you kind of like sort them in their head in some way, and size is a logical way to do that. But I don't know if you guys have had the experience of like either at meetups or maybe like at wind up or something, like someone will pick up a watch and they'll try it on, and then they'll ask, like, what size is it? How big is it? And I always wonder, like, what if I told you it was 43? Like, are you gonna are you then gonna be like disgusted like by it and like and take it off?
Yeah.
Like, is that going to change your opinion? Like, I'd rather, like, when someone asks that question, I'd rather, answer like, well, how do you think it wears? And then, like, tell them how big it is, because, to your point, Blake, like, there's all sorts of ergonomic things that you can do to a watch to make it wear, a certain way, even if it is, over a certain size or under a certain size.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I think for me, I've been a big advocate of trying to watch on if you can before you judge it. But I've also been on the other side where I've judged releases based on like, dang it, I want that watch, but it's it's too big, or the diameter is too big. Looking at you, IWC, but I'm kind of torn, because I think it is helpful to list those specs. One of them specifically that I can think of is, and we're guilty of this too, is, posting a picture of a watch and then specifying what size wrist it's being worn on in the photo, whether it's a 7-inch wrist or a 6.5-inch wrist. And I think for me, when people have asked me like, what wrist size are you? And I'm like, I'm about a 6.5-inch wrist, but the diameter of my wrist and the shape of it's going to be different. Even if you are a 6.5-inch wrist, you might have a more flatter wrist. We all are different. So like, don't judge based on that specific person's wrist size too. So I think all the specs are ultimately helpful for making an informed decision, especially when you're spending a lot of money. But I definitely try not to get. I mean, I'm wearing a watch right now that maybe 3 years ago I would have never considered. Right, This is like a 42. It's, I think, 15 millimeters thick. Yeah, it's huge, and I think a lot of people like overlook this watch because of the size, and it wears really well. The ergonomics of the watch are made to wear well, and Omega really did. They did the bracelet amazingly. It's got an adjustable clasp on it. It just, it fits amazing. And I've never, ever had a problem wearing it because of its size. But if you look at it like from pictures and you look at the specs, you're like, this should be an unwearable watch. It's a brick, basically. Yeah. But it doesn't wear that way. And, sometimes you don't know what it is about it other than the design, and it just fits well. And I think that's the key thing. That's the thing you gotta put the watch on, you got to wear it. Which I know is not always possible, but.
And there's sometimes like, depending on, I guess, like the angle and the lens, the focal length of the lens you're using, like, it's hard to like get an accurate shot of what that watch feels like. Like when you held your wrist up just then with your watch on, it didn't look at all like, oh my gosh, that's like enormous, or that like it just looked normal, like totally normal on your wrist. Like, what a shocker. But I feel like sometimes you see people post wrist shots and it's like their phone like a few inches away from it, that kind of like bows everything out, and it looks,
I think so,
like distorts it. I don't know. Like, it's hard to get an accurate picture of what a watch looks like on a wrist in general.
I also think that if you really, really like a watch, I have so much respect for people that wear watches that are way too big for them. And I mean, you could say that I'm guilty of that wearing this watch right now. It may be too big for me, but if you love that watch and you love the design, wear the heck out of it. Like, more power to you. And I have so much respect for people that just don't care. Whether it's a 34 millimeter watch and it's a big guy wearing it, or if it's a 46 millimeter watch and a tiny wrist is wearing it. If you love it, just wear the heck out of it, and that's something I need to tell myself sometimes too. But I have a lot of respect for those people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what it boils down to too is that like aesthetic taste is like totally subjective. Like, Kat, you have a 6.5-inch wrist and you're wearing this gigantic Speedmaster. And I imagine like you just like the way it looks on your wrist, otherwise you wouldn't wear it. It would also be a totally legitimate, take for someone, with a 6.5-inch wrist to put that watch on their wrist and say like, this is way too big, some people just like the look of something bigger versus something smaller, or vice versa. And I think that's, like everyone's different. Like you have everyone has their own taste, and sometimes you want something big, sometimes you want something more medium sized, and your taste changes.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to know what you think, though. Let us know. There's already kind of a few comments in the article over on One and Wound, so be sure to go check that out and leave your thoughts or in the comments below on this article. Do you have any rules around sizes? What's your take there? Let us know. We're curious to see, and we are also excited to see you in Chicago if you plan on going. Again, those dates are July 15, 16, 17. Go to windupwatchfair.com for all the details, including a list of exhibiting brands, sponsors, and location, of course. So we will be doing plenty of recording and having plenty of discussions with brands there at the show. So again, if there's anybody you'd like to hear from or anything you'd like to know in particular, be sure to let us know, and we will account for that in our scheduling. Until then, thank you for listening and take care.